No kid's Jewish education should end at 13. Adjerba offers Ontario high school credits infused with Jewish learning online for teens across the province. Ministry approved, intellectually demanding, Jewishly transformative. Adjerba.ca. Your teen belongs here.
Hello, North Star listeners. This is Michael Freeman, the show's executive producer. Ellen has fled the country during this brutal snowstorm for the sunny climes of Florida. Good for her. In her absence, we are going to be bringing you the latest episode from our Interfaith Muslim-Jewish miniseries, In Good Faith. This is a somewhat heavier episode. Both guests have lost immediate family members during the ongoing conflict. One of them you've actually heard on this very show before, Yonatan Zeigen, the son of the late peace activist Vivian Silver. So you'll hear him. You'll also hear a Palestinian mother who lost her 6-month-old during the Second Intifada. As always, if you're interested in this show, you can hear all the episodes at thecjn.ca/faith. Ellen will return next week. Thanks.
There's a teaching that appears almost word for word in both Jewish and Islamic scriptures. A surah in the Quran and a Mishnah in Sanhedrin both teach the same lesson.
Whoever kills a soul,
it's as if he killed the entire world. And anyone who saves one person, one soul,
it is as if he had saved mankind entirely.
Throughout history, these wisdom traditions were clearly in conversation with each other, often disagreeing, but on this point they speak with one voice. That the intrinsic value of every human life is paramount, equivalent to an entire world. Each person with parents, friends, dreams and heartaches as rich and deep as our own. And when a person's life is snuffed out, an entire world is snuffed out with them.
The past 2 years have felt like a constant state of mourning. We learned name after name, like Hind Rajab and Mahmoud Dahduh. And images of darkness were everywhere. Children being pulled from the rubble, rows of shrouds in parking lots.
Sometimes it is more generalized. Sometimes it's channeled into specific names. Hirsch, Shani, Ariel, and Kfir.
Feels like there's an ocean of grief and never enough space to mourn.
From what I've seen, I think that large parts of the Jewish community have been living in mourning since October 7th, 2023. These community members sit in our national Shiva house, receiving and offering comfort to one another, wondering how the rest of the world goes on as usual, oblivious to their suffering, and at times, even antagonistic.
There's the sheer weight of the loss, and then the rage, so much rage. When it feels like someone else's grief is being prioritized above your own, or when the reality of your grief is questioned. At the same time, grieving is fundamentally not about death. It can heal us. It can humble us. It can bring us together in shared experiences of loss. In fact, grief may be the most universal and transformative experience of life. Today, we're bringing you 2 powerful stories of grieving. These stories contain graphic descriptions of death and difficult subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
I'm Avi Feingold, a rabbi and a writer with the Canadian Jewish News.
And I'm Yafa Sakeja, a Canadian-Palestinian entrepreneur and volunteer with the Canadian Friends of Standing Together.
This is In Good Faith, a podcast about open-hearted questions from open-hearted people, sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation with support from the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation.
In this show, you'll hear from community leaders, activists, experts, and regular folks, Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians. We'll be having conversations, just hearing them out. Can we, as Canadians, have a space to just sit down across from one another and talk?
Chapter 1, Layla.
Okay, just give me 1 minute, because my grandson making
Okay,
noise.
that's
and
okay. They can make
I'm
noise. So
nervous.
honestly, Lulad, if we have the sound of the children in the background, yani ahsan, it's even better
That
because
didn't bother you? Just one minute.
that's okay.
Their cousin come and they make a big noise, so.
Layla Al-Sheikh returned to Palestine as if walking on clouds. Even though she was born and raised outside its borders, her parents had passed down to her their memories and endless wistful stories of a lost world.
And my parents, they were originally from Bethlehem, but they went to Jordan. And after the war started in 1967, the Israeli government closed the border and they didn't allow the Palestinians to return back. So because of that, I was born and raised in Jordan. But my father had thousands of stories about his childhood, about his family, about his life in Palestine. So I love Palestine from what I heard from my father. And for me, it's become like a dream to return back and live here. So after I finished my study in accounting and business in Jordan, I met my husband. He's originally from Bethlehem. So we went back to Palestine in 1999. And I was really so excited because my dream come true. And I was really happy to visit all the people that my father spoke about and the places. Just to be here, it's a miracle for me. So the first year was amazing. Everything was perfect. And I had my first child. She's a girl. Her name's Yara. And our happiness become more because we start to have our own family. And that family start to become bigger. After 2 months, the second intifada started, the uprising. And during that time, the Israeli government took a decision not to give people like me who came from Arab countries a Palestinian ID. So that meant that I couldn't go freely from place to place. Most of the time, I should stay at home. But I didn't care too much because I have my husband and my daughter to take care of. After a second year, we have our second son. His name was Qusay. He was a beautiful boy. We loved both of them. And as you know, when you start to have children, you start to think about their future and what kind of things that you should provide for them. And this is what my whole life about, my children, my husband. And we become happy to have both of them. But that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002, 4 o'clock in the morning when Qusay woke up in very critical condition. At that time, he was just 6 months old. Because at that night, the Israeli soldiers came to my village and they threw tear gas. And because of that, he became very sick. So the treatment in my village wasn't that good enough. So we tried to take him to a hospital inside of Bethlehem because we live in a village outside Bethlehem. An Israeli checkpoint, they stopped us, they prevented us, and they said it's a military zone, you can't enter. So we tried to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem, but again they told us that the main road is closed. So the last chance was to take him to Hebron, but we should take a rough and long road between villages. And for the third time, an Israeli checkpoint stopped us. They searched the car. They tried to ask my father-in-law, my husband, about their ID. And as a mother, I start to think, what should I do to save my son? So I start to think to take a risk. And that risk will be if they find that I didn't have a Palestinian ID, they maybe take me to jail or send me back to Jordan, and I will never see my children again. But I didn't care. The only thing that I care about, how could I save my son? So I went to them, started to talk to them, tried to convince them to leave us alone, but they didn't listen. Every minute was so important to save his life, but they didn't care about that. After 4 hours, they allow us to move. So when we reached the hospital, I didn't know what to do. I started to cry. I prayed for God to save his life. We couldn't stay at the hospital. They asked us to leave because they said that the Israeli soldiers will come and search the hospital and they will ask everyone to leave if he's not sick. Because they thought sometimes the Palestinian fighters hide inside the hospital. So finally, after we argue with the doctor, we left. So when we reached the house, the first thing I did, I went to the phone, called the doctor, and he started to say a few words. Inside of me, I start to understand what he's trying to tell me, but my mind was refused to believe what he's talking about. And he said, "I'm so sorry, your son passed away." That word was like a bullet comes from his mouth to my heart, smash it down for many pieces. I start to cry like a crazy, didn't know what to do. 5 minutes later, the house was full of people, relatives, neighbors. But for me, I wasn't care about any one of them. The only thing that I care about and think about, how all of this is a lie and this is just a dream and everything will be okay. But unfortunately, that was the truth. That night was the longest, the hardest night I've ever had in my whole life. From that day until today, I think about him every time I speak about him, or even when I look children at the same age of him, now they are growing up. I start to think how he could look like, what kind of study he could have, what kind of job maybe he could have. The hardest was the next day when they bring him back home to say goodbye for him. I thought if I hug him so tight, maybe some kind of miracle will happen and he go back to life. So I tried to kiss him in his cheek as I always do when I hold him. But that kiss was totally different. I felt like I kiss a frozen rock. From that moment, I was filled with hatred, anger. But at the same time, I didn't think to take revenge because revenge will never bring my son back. So I take another decision that I will just take care of my daughter and my husband and forget anything else. My husband, my family tried to convince me to have other children and I refused for more than 3 years. And one day my doctor asked me why you didn't want to have children. I say, why I will have them if finally I will lose them, even if I don't want to. But somehow they will be part of this cycle of violence. But after those 3 years, I have another boy. I give him the same name, Hosai, because I didn't want to forget any details happened that day. When I look to his eyes, when I call his name, I always want to remember him. We tried to live our life normal, but it's not the same until today.
There are support groups for people who have lost loved ones to the conflict across Israel and Palestine. Jews meeting with Jews, Arabs meeting with Arabs, both going through the same motions on opposite sides of the looking glass. Some people come to these bereavement groups in the immediate aftermath of death. For others, it takes longer.
So after 16 years, I met one of my friends that I didn't saw for a long time. So we started to talk about life, children, work, everything. And then he mentioned the Parents Circle and how he participated in one of their projects. And I stopped him and I said, are you crazy? How could you ask me to be part of this organization? You know what happened to my son. And he said, because of that, I want to talk to you about this organization.
The Parents Circle is an organization that brings together Palestinians and Israelis who've lost immediate family members due to violence. The group emerged during the Second Intifada. These families bear witness to each other's stories, share memories of their loved ones, and hold each other in their grief. But Layla couldn't fathom why she would ever want to open her deepest wounds with people who made her feel the most vulnerable.
So he kept calling me every 4 days, 3 days, talking about the Parents Circle. Until one day he called me and he said, get dressed, I'm waiting you in the car. I know that you would try to find excuse because you didn't want to go there. And I said, oh my God, he will never leave me alone. I should go there just to make him stop talking about it. So when we arrived in the beginning, there were just Palestinian. We sat and 5 minutes later, the Israelis start to enter that room. I feel there's something aching in my chest. I didn't want to be with them, so I tried to leave. Then my friend, he started to convince me just to sit, to listen. And when we were arguing about that, I saw something amazed me. For the first time, I saw the Palestinian, the Israeli, they laugh with each other, they hug each other, they even kiss each other like family members, not even just as friends. And I was really shocked because this is the first time I saw something like that. And I said to myself, just sit there. So to hear the Palestinians talk about how they lost their beloved ones, I could understand what they were talking about. But to listen to the Israelis, how they lost their beloved ones, that was the first time. The first time I felt that we share the same pain, we share the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one could understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. And that was the first time I spoke about what happened to my son. Even between me and my husband, after his death, we didn't spoke about him. That was so hard for me, even after 16 years. It's like to open the wound again and bring the memories, the pain, the anger, everything. I start to cry. I couldn't complete the story. And there's an Israeli woman. She came and she started to apologize. And she said, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you, from my people, I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand even the word that you couldn't say. She came and hugged me. Both of us start to cry. And that was the first moment that I felt really there is someone care about me and there someone could understand me and understand my pain. From that day, I decided to continue that project. After that project, I decided even to be a member in the forum and start to give lectures inside Israel, Palestine, even travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I've been in Jerusalem with one of my colleagues, and there's other people from other organizations. So after I speak about my story, I saw an Israeli man, he cried more than the others. I know him before, but I didn't understand why he cried for that much. So when he stand up, he started to talk about his personal story. He mentioned that he was a high officer in the army and he served in my area. And then he mentioned that he prevented a Palestinian car which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become hard. It's become real. It's become in front of me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I just started to cry. So after he finished, one of our friends asked both of us to go outside to speak. And he mentioned he wasn't there at that day. But for me, I imagine that he was there. And just he did the same things to other people like me. So he said to me, look, Layla, I know this is hard for you and it's hard for me, but it's so important to tell you that part of my story. So I look at him and I said, this is so hard for me to listen to your story. But at the same time, I want to thank you. I want to thank you because you didn't hide that part of your story. I want to thank you because you had that courage and honesty to speak in front of me.
In 2009, a 75-year-old Leonard Cohen played his last show in Israel at a sold-out stadium outside of Tel Aviv.
It was a while ago that I first heard of the work of the bereaved Parents for Peace.
He dedicated the show to the Parent Circle and donated a portion of the proceeds from the concert to the group.
There was this coalition of Palestinian and Israeli families who had lost so much in the conflict and whose depth of suffering had compelled them to reach across the border. This is about a response to human grief, a radical, unique, and holy, holy, holy response. And I bow my head in respect to the nobility of this enterprise.
I just start to cry because in my whole life I didn't think that I will meet one of those soldiers.
There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
This is the reconciliation. It's so easy to talk about peace and love, all these lovely words, but sometimes we ask ourselves if we really meant every word we say. And that day, I realized that I meant everything I did and everything I said. And that gave me even power to continue, even in these dark times that we have now, since the 7th of October until today.
Chapter 2, Yonatan.
I myself, actually, she took me to visit Gaza when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
Which was a very unique experience.
If we can back up just for a minute for the people who may not know, can you tell us a little bit about the work that your mom did, the legacy that she gave you, and the work that you're doing to follow in those footsteps?
Well, my mother, Vivian Silver, she came to Israel, immigrated from Canada in 1974.
Vivian was born in Winnipeg and spent years in Jewish student activism before making Aliyah.
And she did it as a part of an ideological mission, it's part of a youth movement. She considered herself a Zionist. She came and they reestablished the kibbutz. The way I see it, back then, there wasn't such a dramatic and concrete gap and clash between people who saw themselves as Zionists and the same people who saw themselves as promoting good in the world and equality.
In 1990, their family moved to Kibbutz Be'eri, 8 kilometers from the Gaza border. Here she is discussing that decision at a J Street conference in 2022.
I'm a kibbutznik for 49 years. I live on the border of the Gaza Strip in Kibbutz Be'eri for the last 33 years, which makes working for peace an existential necessity for me, an imperative for me. It's not something theoretical, it's something very personal.
Vivian dedicated her life to equality between men and women, between Israelis and Palestinians. She worked for the New Israel Fund and on a Knesset subcommittee on women's rights. She co-founded the Arab Jewish Center for Equality, Empowerment, and Cooperation. In 2011, she was named one of the 10 most influential Anglo immigrants by the Israeli newspaper Haaretz.
Since 1998, she became a director of the Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Development, till she retired in 2014.
At 65, I decided it was time to take stock of what I had been doing as an adult peace activist for some 40 plus years. Did I have the impact? Did I have an impact? Did we have an impact? And the sad conclusion I came to is no. And therefore, doing more of the same thing was not an option. That in the few years I had left to be an activist, I had to choose a different path.
I thought that she was retiring in order to be a grandmother. My first child was born. My father was deteriorating in health. Thought, okay, she's retiring, she's gonna knit sweaters. But that didn't stick.
In 2014, the summer, Protected Edge, that catastrophic war that lasted 50 days between Gaza and Israel, it was some kind of straw breaking the camel's back for women all over the country. And they decided, must speak, enough. We have to raise our voices and make a difference. Women came together. We thought there would be a couple of hundred. 1,000 women got on those trains, all over Israel, dressed in uniform. The uniform of women wage beasts of white shirts and turquoise scarves, and officially sounded women wage beasts.
An organization centered around peace and gender, like the role of women in peace building, and it became a very large movement organization. She continued to volunteer in Road to Recovery, driving Palestinian patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals. Every Friday she would go to the border with Gaza and have dialogue. She was just a driven woman and very dedicated.
So I know women wage beasts because some of them, they are member in the parent circle. And once they invited me to talk to the women there, so I start to know some of them, and one of them was called Vivian Silver. And she started to explain for me how she helped the sick children from Gaza, and she take them by her car to the Israeli hospitals. And our relationship started from there, and we exchange our numbers, so we always talk to each other. And losing her was one of the worst things.
Tell us about your experience of October 7th and the days leading after it.
The days leading up to it, you said?
No, after.
After it.
If you had no knowledge of the days leading up to it, it's a very different interview we'll be having.
Well, I think we all had some knowledge that our life isn't sustainable and that an event like October 7th is imminent. We didn't know the timing, we didn't know the scope, but ruling over a people without prospect, that is kind of a one-way road to explosion. But leaving that aside, October 7th, I woke up in Tel Aviv. I was supposed to go to Be'eri because it was a holiday, and we just didn't go. My partner is also from Be'eri, and we spent with the kids every holiday there. And this time we didn't. So I woke up in Tel Aviv, and it took me some time to realize that something completely unusual is happening. And I called her, and I spent the morning, with her.
At 8:35 a.m., she did an interview with the IDF's radio station.
מה קורה אצלכם בבארי?
אני יושבת במעמד, דלת סגורה.
The interviewer is asking, what's happening in your area? Vivian says she's sitting with the door closed.
אין לי מושג מה שקורה.
I have no idea what's going on, she says.
אומרים שיש נפגעים מהקיבוץ.
They say there are explosions from the kibbutz.
את אומרת שאת שומעת,
He asks if she can hear the shooting outside.
של ירי, של נשק
And she says yes.
בחוץ, או שחדר סגור, את נמצאת במקום בטוח?
כמה שאפשר, כן.
Afterwards, Vivian called Yonatan to complain about the interview, saying that the interviewer dismissed her when she said the violence emphasized the need for a peace deal.
At this point, it is 10:14 a.m. She was still in good spirits. Yonatan texted her, "Write something." She immediately replied, "Something." Then a follow-up text, "I'm trying to keep my sense of humor."
I spent the morning, with her, waiting, accompanying her to her violent death.
By 10:41 a.m., the situation changed. Hamas fighters were inside her house.
It was just a very helpless experience.
"I'm afraid to breathe," she wrote. He replied, "I'm with you." She wrote back, "I feel you." That was the last text she sent.
When they announced that she was being killed and burned in her house, I was really devastated. She's a peace activist. She helped the children from Gaza. She do her best. But when war happened, it will never recognize if you are a peace activist or if you're not, or in which side.
it's hard for me to form words to really express, first of all, the shock and the loss and the sadness that we feel about that. It's easy for anybody who feels like they're in her legacy to be really torn and to run away from the work that she's doing. And yet, not only you, but the people that are in her footsteps have chosen to really double down and to say, not only is this work important, it's more important now than it ever was before.
Yeah, I think that if more of us, and leaders in particular, would have been in the right mindset of people like Vivian, like my mother, we wouldn't have gotten to that point of October 7th. So the lesson in October 7th, to me, was how do we now act and shape our realities so that nobody on either side pay these prices. She failed before October 7th, we're failing now, but as much as things seem fruitless, they have purpose, and that is enough to fuel my engagement.
I remember they even published in Israel a photo of me and Vivian Silver together. And my sister called me and she said, "Are you crazy? How could you let them to publish that photo? And now maybe Hamas will come after you." And I said, "So what? We try to improve the life of people in our communities. If there's a people who didn't like that, it's their problem. It's not my problem." And she said, "But," and I then asked her to stop talking about that. I said, "Whatever you said, I will never leave the organization. I will never stop that work because I believe in it."
Do you have people who question you? Meaning there must be people that come up to you and say, Yonatan, why are you going towards these people who you heard them murder your mother?
I have a friend, and she's not like-minded as me, and she's angry with me, not only because of my opinions, but because of what she perceives as emotionally handicapped. So she listened to this podcast I did, and I asked her, "Did you hear the points I made? Did you hear the debate?" And she said, "I couldn't hear anything because I didn't hear you cry before, because I didn't hear any reaction of rage or anger, so I can't internalize your intellectual or political points." And I say, okay, that's too bad, because I don't have that element of the rage. I didn't go through this process of longing for revenge and then realizing something. It's just not the way my mind worked. If I would have felt revenge, if I would have wanted 20,000 kids to be killed in Gaza, I would create more suffering in the world. I wouldn't have less of it in my heart. I would have more of it in the world. So, yeah, people do question that. People do expect it. And I'm sorry to disappoint.
Yonatan began traveling around the world, sharing his mother's story at conferences and rallies with politicians and the media. He joined the board of the Parents Circle. He helped set up the Vivian Silver Impact Award, given to 2 women, Israeli and Arab, who worked towards a peaceful future in the region.
The line of work I'm doing now for the past 2 years, one of its aspects is discourse shaping. Internal in Israel, speaking to crowds, to youth, to organizations, in order to create this, reclaiming of the notion of peace, to make it as prospect, something that is realistic, that is as realistic as war. It's a question of will and not of plausibility.
The work you're doing and the touring, you're going around the world. Do you get asked it on a regular basis, that people know who your mother was, even as you're going around the world? Or is this something that you deal with privately?
It depends. When I go to European parliaments, it's work meetings. I'm coming as a lobbyist. And most of them, they have a headline of, my status, my story. It's not such a big component. It gets the door open, and then the business is
real work. Yeah.
But there are a lot of speaking engagements where the content is wrapped by the story. And in that sense, Vivian is always very present.
You speak with such passion about this, and it really feels like this is so much of your life's work. Are there any stories that you want to share? Is there a specific story you want to share that really your mother showed you who she was and that convinced you this is the work that I have to carry on?
I can tell a prosaic story, not a political one. When I was in 8th grade, someone was rowdy in the hallway of the school, and the tiles broke. The tiles broke off, and I was blamed because I wasn't such a pleasant pupil, and I got into a lot of trouble through my school years. But I was blamed. And my mother was called, and okay, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to discipline him? Are you going to pay for it? And she talked to me about my role in it, and she trusted me because I usually told her when I did something wrong. So instead of clashing with the school, and instead of telling them off, she said, you know what? I know how to do construction. I'm going to come personally to school, and the kids in the grade and me, we will build the wall back. The school allowed it to happen. She came, she had a tool belt. I managed to salvage it from her house. She had this tool belt. And all the troubled kids came out of class, and we built that wall together, and it didn't matter anymore that I was wrongfully blamed it was how to implement a positive outcome instead of fixating about who's to blame, why is that. I carry that as a very strong lesson.
So after a few months, they told me that we have a trip to New York. And then they told me that Jonathan will be there with us. And I was really amazed. How could he join the parent circle after what happened to his mother immediately? Like, for me, it takes from me 16 years, but for him, he came immediately. So I remember when I met him in New York for the first time, that was really hard for me because he's the son of my best friend and he lost his mother. Sometimes you lost a word, you didn't know what to say, but this was so hard for me. But at the same time, I look to the bright side because he will continue what Vivian Silver want to do. And I remember I said to him, I think Vivian will be so proud of you. And she know what you are doing now, because they said that Dad could feel what are we doing in our life, so she will be proud of you.
I'm a part of joint Israeli-Palestinian organizations. We work together, and we together realize that the sides that we are talking about is not Israelis versus Palestinians. It's people who want to live and to build a viable future and to live for mutuality, as opposed to people who want to kill and be killed for exclusivity. It's not a question of you are responsible to this original sin and now you need to somehow disappear. It is a question of two peoples managing from a standpoint of equality to share the land.
I remember maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I started to think to make immigration to Europe because I didn't want to live a life like that here. Every 2 years we have a different war. And I thank God that I didn't do that. Even in this difficult life that we have, with all these checkpoints, with all these wars, with all things happened here, and I thank God every day that I came. What happened to me, I will never forget it, but at the same time, I learned from it. I think this is the best place that I would love to stay in and to live my life, to have grandchildren and make them grow in this land, teach them how to love, how to live. I love this country, whatever happened.
I believe we need to give people permission to sit in their grief, however much time it takes. If it takes months, if it takes years, we can help people by sitting with them. We can't always get people to the other side, but we can make space for their journey.
There is a condolence that is offered by many as they take leave of mourners in the Jewish tradition. Hamakom yenachem etchem betoch sha'ar avei Tzion v'Yerushalayim, meaning may God give you comfort amongst all the other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. The first word in that sentence, hamakom, does double duty, because while the simple meaning of it is translated as the place, it is also occasionally used as the name of God. So on the one hand, we want the mourners to know that God will be a source of comfort. But I also like to remind mourners that places are often sources of comfort as well. Dad's favorite booth at the coffee shop, Grandma's kitchen, these can bring back fond memories that can linger for years. I hope that soon, very soon, the land itself can be a source of comfort for all that have experienced grief on this place we both call home. This has been In Good Faith, a podcast produced by the Canadian Jewish News, sponsored by the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, with support from the Ronald S. Roadberg Foundation. Our production team is Zach Kaufman and Michael Freeman.
If you think someone you know would appreciate this episode, please share it with them.
Thanks for listening.